Working together, we will shape the future together. Welcome to Global Forum in Tel Aviv.
I grew up in a hardware store in Miami, Florida. My parents didn't have much. My mother was a refugee from Germany. I would have never predicted that I'd do half the things I do, whether in business or in advocacy. It makes me emotional thinking about standing at my son's wedding in Jerusalem with hundreds of people. I never thought this would happen, that my son would make Aliyah. To stop, because actually it's such an emotional moment. Then my son would make Aliyah, and we would be there, marrying him to a beautiful Israeli. And as the wedding guests are the guys in fatigues coming from his unit in the army, and all of our family, and it was a wonderful day. Today, as we sit in Tel Aviv, we know there's all kinds of controversy, within the public in Israel, and that's okay. That's how Jews function, through discourse, through arguing, hopefully in a intellectual fashion. In my life, I really don't spend a lot of time thinking about where I'm going to be exactly in the future, and it's worked out for me. That's given me the opportunity to decide where to influence both with my money and my time. I chose to do that with AJC, and I expect to continue to choose that with AJC, along with other organizations. I've been married to my wife Sheila for 43 years, and our views about Israel are so closely aligned. We didn't realize how deep Israel was in our core, but it's absolutely the case, and I think it's strengthened our relationship. That we can both talk about at home what we've accomplished on behalf of Israel and our family in Israel, every single day. I feel part of my purpose is to make sure that the next generation and the generation after that also can say that they lived at a time when there was a free, democratic state of Israel. And AJC helps me facilitate that goal.
Please welcome co-chair of the AJC Arthur and Rochelle Belfer Institute for Latino and Latin American Affairs, Mario Fleck.
Good evening. My honor to be here opening the plenary of today at this beautiful occasion. On May 18th, 1948, just 4 days after Israel declared its independence, Uruguay became the first South American nation and the fourth nation overall to recognize the newly formed State of Israel. Just a few months later, Uruguay also became home to the first Israeli embassy in Latin America. A year earlier, Uruguay's representative to the United Nations, Enrique Fabregat, a member of the United Nations Commission that visited Palestine in 1947, recommended the establishment of a Jewish state. A street in Israel, in the city of Ramat Gan, is named after him, one of the 3 Uruguayans with that honor. A former president of Uruguay, Dr. Tabaré Vázquez, who passed away 3 years ago, was a student at Weizmann Institute of Science here in Israel. Bilateral ties between Israel and Uruguay are indeed historical and unbreakable. Uruguay, an island of stability and democracy in the region, has stood as a steadfast ally and supporter of Israel and global Jewish causes. It was the first Latin American nation to adopt the IHRA working definition of antisemitism in 2020. The 16,000 Jews who live in Uruguay, some of who are here with us today, and the 15,000 Uruguayans who live in Israel have served as an invaluable bridge connecting both nations. AJC recently signed an association agreement with Comité Central Israelita de Uruguay, the main Jewish communal organization there, and the most recent of AJC's 38 association agreements with Jewish communities around the world, and 15th with communities in Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. Uruguay esteemed President Luis Lacalle is an alumnus of AJC's Project Interchange, an experience he speaks of fondly. Under his leadership, their relations with Israel have reached new heights, exemplifying a strong commitment to close cooperation and partnership. Furthermore, President Lacalle's government actively working towards the establishment of an innovation office in Jerusalem, showcasing their dedication to this growing relationship. To celebrate Israel's 75th anniversary, we are honored to have President Lacalle joining us via video as he reflects on the past, present, and future of the enduring relationship between his admirable country and the Jewish state.
It is an honor as President of Uruguay to extend my warmest greeting on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the independence of the State of Israel and the AJC Global Forum. The ties between Uruguay and Israel are historical, unbreakable, and predate 1948. Before the establishment of the State of Israel, Uruguay was one of the members of UNSCOP and the ambassador of Uruguay to the UN at that time, Enrique Rodríguez Fabregat, and other Uruguayan politicians greatly contributed to the 1947 UN resolution that made the creation of the State of Israel possible. 3 streets in Israel are dedicated to Enrique Rodríguez Fabregat as a token of appreciation for these remarkable efforts. On the same week, we celebrate 75th anniversary of the independence of Israel. We also commemorate 75 years of diplomatic relationships between Uruguay and Israel. On May 18, 1948, Uruguay received a telegram from the new State of Israel requesting its independence to be recognized, and only a day later, a presidential decree was issued declaring it. This made Uruguay not only the first South American country and one of the first in the world that recognized Israel, but also, in that same year, 1948, the first Israeli embassy was established in Latin America, and the 4th in the world, in the city of Montevideo, at the Parque Hotel, not far away from where we are now near my office. In the Diplomatic Historical Archive of Uruguay, we keep it as a treasure of history, a document we call Letter of Querence number 4, signed by David Ben Gurion, and I have the honor to share it with you. A few days ago, I participated in the Yom HaShoah Remembrance Tribute in Montevideo, a day that moves us and that we remember. On that date, we also honor the survivors of the Shoah who found refuge in Uruguay. Our country received and protected them here, and they had the opportunity to restart their lives and contribute to the greatness of our country. This story also unites us until today. Both the Jewish community based in Uruguay, so deeply rooted in the life of our country, and the many Uruguayans who live in Israel serve as an invaluable bridge connecting the two countries. Throughout history, many moments have found us together. Among them, every time the cause of peace calls. Until this day, peacekeepers and military observers from Uruguay make up the contingents of the multinational force and observers, created after the Camp David agreements in the Sinai and as contributors to United Nations peacekeeping force in the Golan. When the cause of peace in Israel calls, Uruguay is present and stands next to Israel. From the people of the book, your ancestors, we received the Bible, the oldest book we still read daily. And from the start-up nation, we got the Nano Bible. Those two moments, separated by thousands of years, reflect the greatness of history and the future of technology, where Israel is one of the leaders in the world. We invite you to come to Uruguay and see with your own eyes the country that helps us so much through the creation of Israel, a country that leads in democracy, civil and politician rights, a country with open doors to the world. Uruguay and Israel have a shared history of becoming nations in an exodus. Uruguay with our national hero, José Artigas, and Israel with Moses. Walking, we became a nation. Today, the path finds us walking together because Uruguay and Israel have more complementaries than we could have imagined decades ago. Whether we build those links through innovation and sustainable production, or through the application of technologies and the provision of services to overcome new and changing challenges, we have immense potentials for developing our economies. And that is why we say, let's do it together. A few months before taking the office as a president, I visited Israel twice. One of them with the AJC. So in this occasion, I also want to greet all the friends of this institution and congratulate them for the great jobs you're doing. Our greatest hope in this 75th anniversary is to wish peace for Israel and the region as a whole, and we ask to make every effort to achieve it. As two countries known by the similarities of population and territories, I'm more convinced than ever that what counts the most is the greatness of democracy and freedom. And the most important thing is the greatness of friendship among nations that uphold, that cherish these values. Along with 75 years of independence of Israel, today we celebrate 75 years of friendship between Uruguay and Israel. Warm greetings from Montevideo to the people of Israel and to all the Jewish community around the world.
Please welcome Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Kosovo, Enver Hoxhaj.
Thank you very much. It is for me a great honor and a great pleasure to be here tonight. I'm coming from many meetings which we had today with some members of the parliament from Kosovo in Jerusalem, in Knesset. But let me first thank Mr. Deutch and Mr. Ticknor. I'm very grateful to both of them for the invitation. And it is for me really a great pleasure to be here tonight in Tel Aviv. I'm Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Kosovo. Used to be quite long in all possible governments. Was twice Foreign Minister of Kosovo, around 8 years, Minister of Education, Deputy Prime Minister, and then the time comes when you should go to opposition. And I really enjoy the time of being in opposition in terms of having time more to reflect. But I always thought that the most important task in my life as a foreign policy politician, as somebody who's interested in foreign policy, is to be a friend of Israel. And before I ever visited Israel, before I ever was any time in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, I was introduced to your great country by reading the writings of Theodor Herzl 30 years ago, when I was living and studying at Vienna University, and two friends of mine from the Jewish community introduced me in that time to your great thinker and to your great leader, Theodor Herzl. And since then, I was and I am a big admirer of your country, of your great people, and of your great culture. I read, and I have still, a copy of his book, Alt Neue Land, All New Land, with my notes from that time. And that was a dark time for Kosovo, because we were living in that time under Serb occupation. And we saw in Herzl and his writing as an inspiration for our future. And today you have a member of the parliament of an independent Kosovo in front of you. But I'm not here. Thank you. I'm not here to tell you very, very personal stories. I'm here to thank AJC for massive support given to Kosovo in a very crucial time. 1998, 1999, when genocide was happening in Kosovo, committed by Serbia and by Milosevic regime. It was your organization among the very, very first, who appealed to stop that genocide and the policy of the ethnic cleansing. It was your organization who, in 1999, supported refugees among the countries in the Balkans at a different level. And we are also grateful to your great country, Israel, for welcoming in that time, Prime Minister Netanyahu welcoming that time some 100 refugees who came to Israel. Today, we are an independent country recognized by over 115 countries around the world. We are members of different international organizations. But we are very proud that some years ago, 3 years ago, Israel took the decision to recognize Kosovo as an independent state. We established diplomatic relations, and we are very proud today that we are among the first countries to establish our embassy in Jerusalem. Actually, we are the very, very first European country. And so far, the only one, and I would like to invite our European friends to follow Kosovo. But it is a history of a very close cooperation between Israel and Kosovo before establishing diplomatic relations, before opening the embassy. And there is a friend of yours, there is a friend of mine, Avital Leibovich. She was always for me the hope, the address, the platform of communication with Israel as long as I was Foreign Minister of Kosovo. And because of her support, in 2017, 18, I think it was 2017, in close coordination with your organization and with my friend Avital, we took the decision to ban, to outlaw, to declare as a terrorist organization Hezbollah. And again, we were among the very first country to do that. In order to show you that Kosovo, it is the youngest country in Europe, the youngest country in the Balkans, the youngest democracy, but at the same time, we are the largest democracy in the region. Because, and we are quite similar like your society. We don't accept the idea of authority in politics. We are a very critical society. We are a very vibrant democracy. And there is always a political rotation in our country. And this is the reason why we would like to open a new chapter of cooperation between Israel and Kosovo, because you are the most important and the most liberal, and maybe the only one, but it's not my job, democracy in the Middle East, while we are the youngest and the largest in the Balkans, and we would like to open a new chapter of cooperation between the two countries. This is the reason why I came today with some friends from the Kosovo Parliament. We established a friendship group in our parliament, and we had today great meetings with the Speaker of Knesset, with many members of the Parliament, in order to have a close parliamentary cooperation, but in order to have also a very close economic and societal exchange. And today also in Tel Aviv, there is a large delegation of business community from Kosovo who would like to work closely with business people from your great country. I'm here again to thank your organization for massive support, but also to call you that we are living in a very difficult time. What I learned by being in politics in the last 20 years is that each day in politics is quite new. Each day is very new. And we don't need to see the world with the filters of yesterday, but we have to be very creative in order to approach the challenges which you might have in your country and which we might have in Kosovo. But my last message is that you have an old and a new friend in Europe, because we are also among the oldest nations in Europe. And you can count with our support. I wish you the best. Thank you.
Please welcome AJC Honorary President Stan Bergman.
Good afternoon. Before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to take a moment to say that our hearts go out to those who were injured in today's terror attack on the West Bank, in the West Bank. Now it's time, and my deep honor, to introduce member of the Knesset and chairman of the National Unity Party, Benny Gantz. MK Benny Gantz previously served as Israel's Minister of Defense and as the country's alternate prime minister after a long and decorated career in the Israel Defense Forces, including as IDF's Chief of Staff. MK Gantz represents the soul of the Israel Defense Forces. He attributes his values to his mother, a survivor of Bergen-Belsen, the concentration camp, who instilled in him the humanistic approach that is pervasive of the leadership of the IDF. He referred to his mother's words to him to remember to provide humanitarian aid, medicine, and food for the civilian population on the other side of a conflict. This balanced perspective is critical and deep embedded in the IDF leadership in conducting important work against, as we all know, a complex mosaic. MK Gantz has also reflected, I believe, in the Israeli unique fusion of tradition and modernism, and of Judaism and democracy. MK Gantz is no stranger to the work of AJC and our leadership. And it has been delighted to meet, I've been delighted, and other AJC leaders, to meet him on many occasions in the past. In 2020, MK Gantz joined the AJC Virtual Global Forum in his capacity as Minister of Defense. And we are delighted to have him back with us today at the Global Forum here in Tel Aviv. Please join me in welcoming MK Benny Gantz.
Good evening, everybody. Dear friends, the Deutch and Avital, and all the leaders of AJC, which came to visit Israel. This is so very important for us all. Before I start, I want to wish a full recovery to those wounded in the terror attack in the Shomron today. I'm sure that, like always, our security forces will end up capturing the terrorists and bring them either to prison or to their grave, whatever comes first. Terror reminds us, time after time, on our need to stay united within ourselves so we can overcome our enemies. And we will definitely overcome this squad of terrorists as we have done so before. I want to take this opportunity today to talk about struggle and hope. The people of Israel were born in the midst of a struggle. The book of Genesis tells us how the name Israel was born out of our father's Jacob's struggle. After struggling with the angel on the riverside on his way back to Canaan, Jacob ultimately demanded he'd be given the angel blessing. The angel responded, "Was your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with humans, and you overcame." We are the same people, from the same place, that struggled 40 years in the desert until reaching the promised land. A people that yearn for the return to Jerusalem after 2,000 years of exile. A people that struggle to survive in the ghettos and survive the systemic extermination in the Shoah. A people that succeeded in building a nation after years of sustained efforts of the Jewish national movement. A people that struggled with the heat and the swamps, and yet managed to transform the country into a high-tech superpower and the strongest country in the Middle East. As we celebrate 75 years to Israel independence and 75 years to the restoration of Zion in the epicenter of the Jewish people, we find ourselves contending with a series of new struggles. I'm going to talk about 4 of those major struggles. The first struggle is the struggle against antisemitism and in favor of promoting tolerance for the Jewish life globally. Over the last few years, we have witnessed a sharp rise in anti-Semitic incidents. Only recently, I heard of a shocking case of an authentic teenager wearing a kippah who had a swastika carved into his back in Las Vegas. We must act against the daily realities that lead to such incidents. Realities where Jewish students are attacked with lies on campuses. A reality where the City University of New York allows student speakers to spread hate against Israel on stage. This is a struggle we must overcome. On this opportunity, I want to thank Ted, Michael, Avital, and all of AJC of their commitment to this issue, and specifically for organizing a bipartisan action group in Congress to combat anti-Semitism. I also want to thank the current American administration for publishing the first ever national strategy to counter anti-Semitism last month. Time has come for Israel to shift gear on this issue as well. Every embassy needs to be measured by its effort in mitigating anti-Semitism. Every community needs to be equipped with the right tools, and every meeting with world leaders needs to address this pressing issue. In combating anti-Semitism, we must remember that it is not always easy to explain that though we are strong, we are still right. The second struggle we must contend with is anti-Semitism and racism being of the reasons behind the isolation of Jews from Jewish people and the State of Israel. Unfortunately, a growing number of Jewish youth feel less connected to Israel today, and they grow up hearing horrible lies about it. Every Jew around the world must know that they have so much to be proud of. They must know that Israel will always be ready to welcome them no matter what. And we must ensure that all Jews feel that they have a place, physical or spiritual, in Israel. We must take action so that every single young Jew better understands Israel, so that every Israeli better understands the diaspora. The third struggle is contending with a potential existential threat. These days, Iran is getting closer to becoming a nuclear threshold state and is funding terror proxies around the world. This is a global struggle for the world order and for maintaining regional stability. Whether it is through funding of Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihadic spreading terror, whether it is through Hezbollah, who plays a central role in the disintegration of Lebanon, whether it is through Houthis in Yemen threatening and acting against Saudi Arabia and UAE. Iran's actions affect the entire global surrounding and the entire Middle East. And bear in mind that with a nuclear umbrella, Iran will lead to a potential arms race in the Middle East and in the rise of Iranian aggression around the world. And for those reasons, the world must stop it. Israel will not be able to reconcile with such reality. On the subject of Israel's security, there will be no difference between the coalition and the opposition here in Israel. Should a responsible, necessary, and determined action be needed against Iran, and as a party leader in the opposition, I will provide my full support to the government. Unfortunately, we are closer than ever have been in the past in needing this act, and I truly hope that the world will act before that time comes. This is a struggle of every Israeli citizen and of every global citizen. It has its hardships, yet it also has its hopes for new alliances and cooperation with our neighbors. Let us remember that stability in the Middle East will lead to prosperity, and that prosperity can lead to a greater freedom and improved quality of life for the people of that region. And let us all maintain and strengthen this very important stability. The fourth and last struggle in Israel these days is the Israeli struggle for its democratic identity. This struggle is not one between the citizens of Israel, as it is in the interest of all Israeli citizens. It is true, there are deep internal divisions. The last few months have resulted in a deep wound in the heart of the Israeli society. And from the very first moment, I said my personal commitment is to bring all sides to an understanding. In our fourth struggle, there must not be any winners. And if we succeed in this complex mission, we will emerge stronger than before, for the sake of the future generations, for the resilient and united Israel, and for the sake of all democratic, Jewish, liberal, strong, and just Israeli society. Dear guests, our most important struggle is to be able to prosper and live together. All of the Jewish people and all of the Israeli citizens. That is what will promise an internal hope, the hope and the vision to continue being a free people in our homeland and everywhere, is the struggle that unites us all. May hope and unity forever guide us. Thank you very much.
85% of young American Jews between the ages of 18 to 29
have experienced anti-Semitism
online or on social media
in 2022.
I wouldn't be surprised if this number was higher in reality.
Anti-Semitism is kind of manifesting itself in a different light.
It's the celebrities that we follow. It's the classmates that we see every single day.
TikTok has been an awful place to be as an out Jew. A comment that stood out to me the most was Hitler should have done a better job.
It's impossible to fight anything in a vacuum. We're only as strong as the people who stand with us as a community.
And it's very important that just as loud and vocal as the people are who hate us, that we are that loud and vocal in opposition.
Our strength will be stronger than the hate that we face.
My name is Alex.
My name is Eitan.
My name is Ben.
And I'm taking a stand against anti-Semitism.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Welcome AJC Executive Council member Lisa Pruzan and AJC Leaders for Tomorrow alumnus Charlie Pruzan.
Good evening. It's our honor to present this year's AJC Sharon Greene Award for Campus Advocacy. AJC and Leaders for Tomorrow, or LIFT, has played a meaningful role in our family's life and in the lives of Jewish student leaders on campuses across the United States. The AJC community understands the importance of empowering young Jews to be Jewish, Zionist, and proud. Created in 2017 by the family of Sharon Greene, this award recognizes student leaders and organizations who effectively and courageously combat anti-Semitism, stand up for Israel, and promote Jewish life on campus. This year's award recipients are truly deserving of this honor.
Having just graduated from college, I've seen firsthand that being a student who publicly identifies as Jewish, and particularly as pro-Israel, is not always easy. I am grateful that LIFT prepared me to advocate for myself and the Jewish community on campus. I am proud to be the third generation of my family to be a part of AJC, following in my mom and my grandmother Carol Lowenthal's footsteps. As many of us here know, Jewish students are being intimidated and ostracized purely because of their Jewish identity, which is why I am particularly impressed and inspired by today's recipients.
Despite the challenges, so many Jewish student leaders are standing up and modeling the kind of compassion and dignity that's sorely needed in our society today. Through the Alexander Young Leadership Department, AJC continues to invest in these inspiring student leaders by developing meaningful opportunities to serve, such as the newly created AJC Campus Global Board, through which student leaders, help guide AJC's work on campus and act as ambassadors to effectuate change throughout campuses and the global community.
The first of this year's Sharon Greene Award recipients are Northwestern University students Lily Cohen and Ethan Less, and Northwestern University Hillel. Together, they represent the traits of the namesake of this award, a dedication to advocacy and strong Jewish values. They courageously pushed back against the egregious anti-Semitism Lily experienced at Northwestern in response to a powerful op-ed she wrote, and also enlisted the help and solidarity of their non-Jewish peers, creating a movement that will benefit the entire Northwestern community in the years to come. Thank you for modeling courageous leadership in the face of hatred.
Our second award recipients, the Jewish Students Association at UC Berkeley Law, are facing a daunting environment on campus. This year, over a dozen student clubs passed exclusionary bylaws that prohibit Zionist speakers from speaking to their clubs, effectively shutting out the vast majority of Jewish students who believe in Israel. The amazing strength of these leaders, Charlotte Aaron, Hannah Krutsiansky, and Milton Zerman, to organize and represent the Jewish community in the face of these discriminatory efforts is a powerful reminder of the Jewish people's resiliency. Now, please direct your attention to the video screens. Thank you.
I'm Lily Cohen, and I'm a junior at Northwestern University. I'm a proud active member of Northwestern Hillel and spend most of my time in the building. The phrase "from the river to the sea" has a really troubling history to Jewish and Zionist students like me and a lot of other students because of its ties to Hamas and the way that it has been used to call for the destruction of the Jewish state and the Jewish people. In response to a lot of the problematic anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic language that I saw being put up around campus in the fall, I decided to write an op-ed, which really was at its core a love letter to my Jewish identity. And there was a part of the op-ed where I talked about how problematic I see the phrase "from the river to the sea" as a Jewish person, as someone who loves Israel as a part of my Jewish identity. So the immediate reaction to publishing my op-ed was, as I had expected, on Twitter. There were an array of tweets calling me a terrorist, a colonizer, a lot of other colorful names. But then about a week after I published my op-ed, a banner was put up in the center of campus on our main road, and the backdrop of the banner was 40 copies of my op-ed, and on top of it, someone or some people had painted "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" in red paint. And that felt like an attack because the background of that banner was my words, and with that, my identity that I had shared in that piece. The rock is really our symbol of free speech on campus, and it was definitely very disappointing to see the rock painted with a lot of these anti-Zionist phrases. Hillel has been a huge network of support, and I think it has also sort of energized the pro-Israel Jewish population on campus. Our biggest defense against anti-Semitism is just to be proudly Jewish, and don't be afraid to be authentically yourself.
I'm Charlotte Aaron, and I am a third-year law and public policy student at UC Berkeley, and I'm the president of the Jewish Student Association at Berkeley Law, and our primary mission is to enrich Jewish student life and make positive contributions to our campus. The bylaws do two primary things. The first is that the organizations who pass them commit to not invite speakers that have expressed and continue to hold views in support of Zionism or Israel. And the second is that the board members agree to participate in a Palestine 101 training held by law students for justice in Palestine and engage in the BDS movement. We, as an organization, don't take any position on the Israeli-Palestine conflict or really any political issue, and we don't require our members to. But when these bylaws came out, we realized that they were going to disproportionately impact Jewish students, and we've already seen the realities of that, which is that Jewish students are specifically being asked, "Oh, what is your position on Israel?" And that in and of itself is discriminatory. I think there are two major takeaways from this. The first is the importance of having a strong Jewish community so that in the face of actions that can rattle a Jewish community, we have a place for those students to go and feel welcome and safe and warm and good about being Jewish. And the second is to model for the broader community what a pluralistic group can look like, where its members trust each other and everyone feels respected and heard, and we're able to engage in difficult conversations when we need to.
Now, it's my distinct honor to welcome our 2023 Sharon Greene Award winners to the stage.
Lily and Ethan, thank you for being defenders of the Jewish community on Northwestern University's campus. Your work inspires us, and we look forward to seeing all the incredible things the two of you and your classmates will continue to do in the years ahead. Congratulations.
If you had asked me 6 months ago how I would define my college experience, I likely would have named my friends, my dance company, and unfortunately, COVID. I wouldn't have believed you if you had told me that anti-Israel students would begin painting anti-Semitic and anti-Israel slogans around campus on a weekly basis, that I would publish an op-ed in the school newspaper, a love letter to my Jewish and Zionist identity, or that the negative response would overflow from students' Twitter feeds to a public banner in the center of campus attacking my words and my Judaism. I certainly wouldn't have believed that I somehow feel stronger and prouder on the other side of this, and that's thanks in large part to all of you here at American Jewish Committee. AJC was one of the first organizations to reach out and offer me support, guidance, and a platform to publicly share my story on AJC's People of the Pod podcast. My community at Northwestern Hillel also came through for Jewish students in extraordinary ways in the aftermath of the public desecration of Jewish and Zionist beliefs, offering reflection spaces, snacks, and meals, and, most of all, strengthening our community. Our Hillel has always been a rock for Jewish students on campus, navigating BDS resolutions in our student government, anti-Semitic remarks made by professors, and hateful language on social media by our peers. During these trying moments, often what students are looking for is support. AJC Campus Affairs helped amplify what we were experiencing on our terms and allowed us to share our story. On behalf of Ethan and Northwestern Hillel, I am so grateful to accept this unbelievable honor. In college environments that don't always welcome and often attempt to actively push away our pride, it is because of the support of people like Bill and Sharon Greene and organizations like American Jewish Committee that Jewish students like us can continue being loudly and proudly Jewish on our campuses. Thank you.
Congratulations to you both. Charlotte, Hannah, and Milton, we extend our heartfelt appreciation to you for your unwavering commitment as defenders of Jews and Israel on Berkeley's campus. Your remarkable efforts serve as a source of inspiration for us all. Congratulations.
So first and foremost, thank you so much to the American Jewish Committee and to the Greene family for this generous award. We are honored to be recognized for our Jewish activism and the work that we did to build a robust and welcoming Jewish community on the Berkeley Law campus. We also want to thank the other 5 Jewish Student Association board members, Adam, Ellie, Jordan, Josh, and Noah. These individuals worked tirelessly with us last semester to cultivate our Jewish community. We laughed together over Shabbat dinners, decompressing with friends after tiring weeks of law school. We gathered for religious events, feeding our classmates Hamantashen for Purim and a kosher for Passover lunch during a lecture from an Egyptian Jewish refugee. Passion, effort, and love went into the planning of these events. Real work required to build and maintain community. We are grateful to be recognized by AJC for this work. But of course, the elephant in the room is that many Jewish students at Berkeley Law had a particularly tough year. At the start of the year, a number of student organizations passed bylaws that excluded Zionist speakers and left many Jewish students feeling unwelcome in these organizations' communities at Berkeley Law, communities in which these Jewish students would have otherwise been active members and even leaders. For many Jewish students, their Judaism is intrinsically linked to Israel and Zionism. Those students' experience quickly became tainted by discrimination and pain. Many of our community members experienced isolation, choosing not to attend social events out of concern for how they would be perceived and whether they would be welcomed. The Jewish Student Association recognized that the best thing we could do was to build a vibrant Jewish community. There's so much to celebrate about Judaism: our history, our culture, our food, our religious practices, our chutzpah, and our desire to make the world a better place. We put our efforts, thank you. Thank you. We put our efforts and continue to strive towards building a community where Jewish students can share in celebration, learning, and tradition, and when faced with adversity, stand together united as Jews. Setbacks like the ones we faced this fall don't discourage us. We're inspired by the vitality, diversity, and vibrancy of our community and the continued pride of our Jewish peers. Moreover, we're immensely grateful for the AJC and the role that every person in this room and beyond has played in uplifting the broader Jewish community. We can stand here today in large measure because of your support. Once again, thank you so much to the Greene family for this award. We are incredibly grateful and know your contribution will make impactful Jewish programming at Berkeley Law possible. And I can promise you this: we will not be intimidated, we will not be silenced, and we will not be discouraged. Thank you, AJC.
Hello, Tel Aviv. Hello, Global Forum. And thanks to all my friends at AJC, including Ted Deutch, for your leadership in the fight against anti-Semitism. Your work has helped to advance the safety and security of Jewish communities across the United States and all around the world. I also want to congratulate the special envoys, including my good friend, Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, for receiving the AJC David Harris Award. As the first Jewish spouse of an American president or vice president, combating anti-Semitism is very personal to me. My own great-grandparents escaped persecution from what is now Poland around 120 years ago to live their dreams in the United States of America. And while they were lucky to escape, there were so many others who weren't. Anti-Semitism is the world's oldest form of hate, yet it remains all too present in communities across our nation. Although Jews make up just over 2% of the overall population in the United States, anti-Semitic hate crimes are occurring at the highest rate on record. Under the leadership of President Biden and Vice President Harris, we are condemning and combating anti-Semitism at every turn. Last December, we hosted a roundtable at the White House with Jewish leaders, including AJC, to discuss combating anti-Semitism. 2 days later, President Biden established an all-of-government group to develop a national strategy to counter anti-Semitism and hate. And that group got right to work, mobilizing more than 24 federal agencies and conducting listening sessions with more than 1,000 Jewish leaders, faith leaders, civil rights leaders to help create the strategy. Then, in January, Ambassador Lipstadt and I traveled to Poland to commemorate International Holocaust Remembrance Day. But we also traveled to Germany to meet with special envoys from across Europe to learn about their plans to safeguard Jewish heritage and combat hatred of Jews. And when we returned, our work continued. I spoke at the United Nations about the scourge of anti-Semitism. We hosted conversations with many different groups, college students, interfaith leaders, executives in the sports and entertainment industries, and members of Congress. And last month, we released the first ever United States National Strategy to Counter Anti-Semitism. The strategy includes input from AJC and has received overwhelming support from the public. The strategy is rooted in President Biden and Vice President Harris's agenda to fight hate more broadly, strengthen our democracy, and to protect religious freedom. And most importantly, this plan will help to save lives. Now, our administration is working to implement this plan. Just last week, at the U.S. Conference of Mayors' 91st annual meeting, I heard directly from local leaders about the actions that they are taking to fight hate in their own communities. As we continue to build a whole-of-society approach to counter anti-Semitism, we will need your help. We need leaders like all of you to encourage everyone to speak out against hate, call out those who don't, and take action in their communities. Working in partnership, we will prevent and counter anti-Semitism at every level of society and all around the world. This work isn't easy, but together, I know that we will get the job done. Thank you very much.
that experience is it's only the first step in what typically turns out to be a very long-term relationship, a changed relationship with AJC and with the Jewish people.
AJC's Project Interchange, a trip that informs my work in Congress on everything from security assistance to Israel to bilateral cybersecurity cooperation between our two countries.
Project Interchange, taking young people from all over the country to visit Israel, interact, and understand the history of the country.
Our visit to Israel cannot be summarized by a single story or a takeaway, but the dynamic and personal essence of our experience demonstrates the potential of the Abraham Accords for everyday Arabs and Israelis.
My friends at AJC put together a coalition of women journalists early in our career, and we went to Israel. And I wanted to say it's one of the most important steps of my professional career was that trip to Israel.
Hi, I'm Ted Deutch, CEO of American Jewish Committee. Advocating for the Jewish people in Israel has been my passion all my life. I'm a proud Jew, and I'm honored to be a leader in the fight against anti-Semitism and one of Israel's staunchest supporters. Now, here are the 5 things I want you to know about AJC. Number 1, AJC is the leading global Jewish advocacy organization. We drive change through our long-standing relationships at the highest levels of government and civil society, and through our unparalleled advocacy network of more than 70 offices, institutes, and Jewish community partnerships worldwide. Number 2, AJC is building a brighter Jewish future. In communities across the globe, AJC celebrates and strengthens Jewish life and empowers Jews to be strong, resilient, and proud of their Jewish identities. And whenever the Jewish people are threatened, AJC is there, taking on all forms of anti-Semitism, whether it comes from the left, the right, wherever it comes from. Number 3, AJC opens doors for Israel and to Israel. We develop new friendships and partnerships for the Jewish state and create more opportunities for more people to engage with Israel and to benefit from Israeli innovation. AJC is a leader in the effort to expand the circle of peace in the region. Number 4, AJC promotes democratic values. We stand up for the principles of pluralism, build coalitions with diverse faith and ethnic groups because we know that efforts to advance our vision for the world are that much stronger when we work with like-minded partners. Together we push back against threats to democracy. And how does AJC advance our mission? Well, here's number 5. Through principled, values-based, nonpartisan advocacy. Because the issues facing the Jewish people are too important to be politicized. That's what makes AJC a trusted partner on Capitol Hill and in halls of power all around the world.
Please welcome Dr. Laura Shaw Frank, Director of the AJC William Petchek Contemporary Jewish Life Department.
Good evening. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you for AJC's signature Global Forum session, The Great Debate. As we sit here together in Tel Aviv, 1,500 strong from 60 nations around the world, celebrating the 75th anniversary of Israel's birth, our topic could not be more relevant. Our panelists will be debating the question, should diaspora Jews have a say in Israeli affairs? The debate's central question asks us to consider what place diaspora Jews hold in the state of Israel, what role Israel plays for the Jewish people as a whole, and how Israeli and diaspora Jews see one another. These are enormous issues, not easily addressed with pithy catchphrases or simple rules of engagement. But we who care passionately about the Jewish people cannot shy away from them. If the Jewish diaspora and Israel are to remain strongly connected and staunchly committed to a unified Jewish future, it is incumbent upon us to face these issues head on, debate them, and discuss them, even if, in fact, especially if, we don't always agree. And the time is now. In this moment of intense discord in Israeli society, these questions have become more contested than ever before. At this time, please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists, each one a highly respected thinker about the Israel-diaspora relationship. Dr. Yehuda Kurtzer, President of the Shalom Hartman Institute of North America, and Ariel Kahana, Senior Diplomatic Commentator for Israel Hayom, to the stage. Welcome, Yehuda and Ariel.
Okay.
Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to unpack our debate question. First, what does it mean when we ask if diaspora Jews should have a say in Israeli affairs? Of course, diaspora Jews are entitled to voice any opinion they want about Israeli affairs. But should Israel, the Jewish homeland, be obligated to listen to those opinions and incorporate them into its thinking? Second, although we use the collective term diaspora Jews in our debate question, this evening we're going to be focusing primarily on the American Jewish community. The question of how different diaspora Jewish communities should interact with Israel is deeply informed by the unique circumstances of each community. American Jewry is by far the largest diaspora community, representing approximately 80% of the Jewish diaspora. And American Jewry's connection to the state of Israel has always been intertwined with its advocacy for Israel with its own government, Israel's most important ally. Indeed, AJC leaders across the United States, through our 25 regional offices, advocate passionately for Israel each and every day. American Jewry's large size and unique role in advocating for Israel impact the way both Israeli and American Jews see the relationship between these two largest Jewish communities on earth. So, as not to flatten the richly diverse Jewish diaspora by lumping all its unique communities together, we've chosen to primarily focus on the relationship between the American Jewish community and Israel. With those caveats, let's get to our debate. We will begin our debate by asking each speaker to offer an opening statement of up to 2 minutes, and you see we have a clock. And we will then allow up to 2 minutes of rebuttals, after which I will pose a series of questions to the debaters, who will each have up to 2 minutes to respond. We will conclude with a 1-minute summation by each debater. We conducted a coin toss backstage to determine which of our speakers will begin, and we will begin with Ariel. Ariel, bevakasha.
Toda raba. Shalom everyone, good evening AJC. It's not only a great honor to be at this stage, it's also very moving, the speeches we just heard from Kosovo to Northwestern University. Sometimes here in Israel we intend to forget the support we have or we get from the world. We are usually focused on our internal issues. So for me as an Israeli, it's always heartwarming, I would say, to hear just what happened here in the last hour. And also, mainly on times of disagreements, of dispute, I think it's most important to keep talking one with each other, especially a time of disagreements as we had here in Israel, or the issue we will just going to discuss. And finally, someone told me that Yehuda and I look a little bit similar, so I'm not sure if we really look like one each other, but what I am sure is that Yehuda and I and all of us in this room are one big family. The floor is yours.
So my short answer to this question, should diaspora Jews have a say in Israeli affairs, is hell yes. Diaspora Jews should have a say in Israeli affairs. But the longer answer, one that merits maybe 2 minutes, is this. You know, of the many miracles brought about with the founding of the State of Israel, the one I want to focus on that we don't actually see as much because we have lived through it in the ways that we have is the transformed nature of Jewish peoplehood itself. You see, prior to the creation of the State of Israel and for most of the last 2,000 years of Jewish history, Jewish peoplehood was a construct. Jews believed in the idea of Jewish peoplehood, but didn't actually have a lot to do with one another, much less have much to say to one another. So while I'm sure 18th century Jews in Warsaw probably would have had opinions about 18th century Jews in Tunis, their capacity for them to communicate with one another was non-existent. And so we believed in some notion of the Jewish people, but had no mechanism or tools to build relationships across all of these differences. We might have cared about one another, but very little investment in what the other was doing. The combination of the tragedies of the 20th century, as well as the creation of the State of Israel, gave the Jewish people a different meaning, a collective project to build the national homeland of the Jewish people. And that project took a lot from all of us, whether or not we decided to actually move here and become citizens, and the Zionism still remains at the heart of Jewish peoplehood today. Its successes make us proud as American Jews, and its failures embarrass us as American Jews. And I would suggest that making Israel one of the central projects of Jewish peoplehood was not just a story of the 20th century, but needs to be a story of the 21st. And that motivates my insistence of why diaspora Jews have the right and need to weigh in on Israeli matters and to all Israeli matters, and that the attempts to control that are not only misguided, but are actually attacks on Jewish peoplehood itself.
So, first of all, talking about history, as far as I know, Jewish communities during history definitely had ties one with each other, including rabbis or community leaders who were sending letters one to each other to discuss issues in halakha or in other topics. So one of the unique sides of Judaism all over those 2,000 years is being all around the world, but still being one nation. In any case, this period of history that we have the State of Israel is in no way to compare to the former part of history when actually we were in exile. Israel, I believe everyone will agree with me about it, Israel is the center of the Jewish people, of Judaism in this period. Of course, we respect and we love and we want to be in touch with Jews all around the world. But the center is here.
So
that's my reply.
It's exactly that transformation. Something is different from a previous era than it is now. And even if you claim that the center of Jewish life is here, and the main questions that the Jewish people are litigating on a global stage around democracy and power and the meaning of Jewishness in the world, if you believe that to be the case, then it actually obligates world Jewry to be engaged deeply in what we think Israel is doing well and supporting it from afar, and engaged equally in helping Israel to see the things that we as diaspora Jews can uniquely see and bring from the power of our Jewish tradition. Because this is ultimately the main change that Zionism should bring about to the Jewish people, which is, if we are actually a different Jewish people today, it's time for the Jewish people to grow up. Israelis are not going to wither under the criticism or the involvement of American Jews. Israelis are powerful and resilient. This project of the State of Israel is not so fragile that the commentary, the criticism, and the involvement of Jews who care about this place is actually going to weaken it. And ultimately, if we believe in this notion that the Jewish people are responsible for one another, responsibility is not cheerleading. Responsibility is the obligation to say, I can see something you can't see. I might be able to help you on the things that you might not be able to deal with on your own, and to understand that there's a companion relationship between support and criticism as fundamental commitments of the Jewish people.
I would say that to tell me that from far America, you see things that going on here better than we Israelis see, it's kind of, I would say, patronalize. That's the word. You should give Israelis, I would say, the respect to make their own decisions. And you have to respect the different way we see the issues. After all, we live here. You know, I have a hobby. When I go to America, I'm a reporter, so I see the news. Same America, same news. I open CNN and I open Fox News. As if completely two realities on the same facts in the same state. What is my lesson from that? It's not to be pro-Biden or pro-Trump. It's to know that for me, as someone who is coming from far away, I don't know, and I should respect the decisions of the country I'm visiting. Same applies for here. Israelis has their own judgment, has their own democracy tools, has their own experience, and are located in the other side of the world. Give us a little bit credit, we know what we do.
So first of all,
you're not even going to let me get to the questions, are you?
One more.
All right, fine. One more, Yehuda, one more.
You know, a number of years ago at a Hartman philosophy conference, the late Professor Sidney Morgenbesser was weighing in on something that he thought Israelis should, some topic of concern about Israeli politics. And one of his Israeli colleagues said to him, are you telling us, you, American Jew, are you telling us what to do? And he responded by saying, oh, you misunderstand me. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I think. That's a big difference. The Jewish people actually have tools, resilient tools of learning from one another, of arguing and debating with one another. So no, I as an American Jew am not coming here and saying, I understand this country better than its voting citizens. I am not trying to get in the way of a process that is already there. But just as one example, the community of the Jewish people around the world with the longest continuity of thriving as a Jewish community under the conditions of democracy are American Jews. Is there something that we have figured out about democracy and liberalism that might be useful? So if the obstacle becomes, you don't live here and you can't weigh in, imagine that the Jewish people in the State of Israel are actually subtracting from ourselves the wisdom of Jewish peoplehood as can be sourced around the world. Why would we do that?
All right, so first of all, I'm here because I want to hear your views.
I'm telling you, I'm not going to get to ask a single question here. All right.
I do.
Let me just, one second. I'm giving you 1 minute and you 1 minute, and then we're going to questions.
Yeah. We'll try. We're making this debate because as an Israeli, I do want to hear what you have to say or the people here have to say, definitely. But all in all, the decisions regarding Israel has to be made here. Now, look, I don't want to speak negatively, of course, about history of Jewish America. We just heard a painful challenge Asian challenge we were all going through, but unfortunately in last years, Jewish American, especially youngest, but not only, are suffering more. I'm talking about the anti-Semitism. So, of course, I'm very happy, of course, of the success of American Jews and the help American Jews gave and is giving to Israel. But all in all, to say that is an example of success to Israel, it's not the case.
I would never make a claim that everything about the American Jewish community is thriving. I've chosen to build my life and my career in support of the North American Jewish community to help the American Jewish community struggle with its challenges. So it's not the patronizing language of we've figured everything out there that is going to be equally applicable here. I know that. Nor would I claim that American Jews should circumvent the democratic process by which the citizens of the State of Israel ultimately have to make their decision. The question here is a question of should. What should the Jewish people be like? And it would be tragic to me to say, at a moment when we have rehabilitated the whole idea of Jewish peoplehood and the capacity of our people to thrive in different parts of the world at the same time, under the two best sets of conditions that the Jewish people have ever had, that we would deprive ourselves of the wisdom and the opportunity to take advantage of that moment.
Since I can't answer,
Hold on a second.
I'm noting.
Take notes,
please.
I want to actually take a step back and take a 30,000-foot view for a moment. I'm going to give you a sentence we hear in the Jewish world all the time. And we say it, and I don't think we really think about what it means. Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people. What does that statement mean to you? What's a homeland? Does Israel belong to diaspora Jews the same way it belongs to Israeli Jews? So I think, Ariel, we're up to you. Yeah? We'll start with you, and then Yehuda. Go ahead.
So Israel as a Jewish state means for me a place, of course, that all Jews has part in it. It means that every Jew, and even a child or grandchild of Jews, can come here and become an Israeli citizen the way he landed in Ben Gurion, and the same moment he get all rights and all duties like an Israeli who is living here for decades. It means that we, Israelis and the state of Israel, has an obligation to diaspora Jews all around the world, whether it's keeping ties with the diaspora and whether it is security challenges, which unfortunately Jews all around the world are suffering from. And last, a Jewish state means for me being the center of the Jewish peoplehood, not only now, but also for future. And that goes to a point, Yehuda, you mentioned before, the guarantee for the Jewish peoplehood, the Jewish people to continue is definitely a joint effort by all of us. But the main part of this effort is the state of Israel. This is the center of Jewish life. Again, I respect a lot Jewish America, and I'm keep learning about the part you have and you had and you will have. But Israel is the center. Last point, time is short. Last point, you, of course, as I said, you have all rights to talk. But when you talk as America, a Jewish leader, when you speak, it affects everyone around, and therefore, non-Jewish population. Therefore, there should be a responsibility. If you want to speak, speak. But do it in a careful way and in a responsible way, because it influences what goes on in America or here in Israel.
So going back to your, So Laura, going back to your original question, when I think about this idea of the homeland of the Jewish people or the national home of the Jewish people, I'm reminded of one of the difficulties that I struggle with, even with my own viewpoint about diaspora Jews having a say here.
I will step aside and
I can just take both sides here. Which is actually, the state of Israel has a built-in paradox that's in the source in the Declaration of Independence and has been working itself out since, which is the claim that it is both the nation state of the Jewish people, which obviously recent Israeli governments have been trying to entrench through legislation, and also it strives to be a state for all of its citizens. So it worries me a little bit that as diaspora Jews, we sometimes leapfrog, for instance, Palestinians as citizens of Israel, Palestinians under occupation, who are part of that state of all of its citizens or all of its inhabitants. I worry about that. Are we entering into a place that's uncomfortable? But then I remember that whole notion of a nation state of a Jewish people. I look at the history of what American Jews and other diaspora Jewish communities were capable of doing here. I look at all of the ways that the rights and responsibilities of and to diaspora Jews are baked into this country from the law of return and elsewhere. And it starts to become something where you say, I know this is hard. I know it's complicated to navigate, that the state of Israel is both the national homeland of the Jewish people, and that Jewish communities can and should thrive in diaspora, and there are non-Jews who live here who deserve equal rights as well. And I don't want to just look at something difficult and say, well, that looks too dicey to navigate. I guess we should leave Israel to the Israelis. And part of me says, and I mean this not in a patronizing way, I mean this in a loving way, the state of Israel is too important to the Jewish people to leave to Israelis alone.
Okay, so we're going to get
Can I reply?
What tiny reply?
Tiny reply. No one promised us it's going to be an easy journey. Of course, we have a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, and like Golda Meir once said, we have no option not to be optimistic. Yes, we have to fight and do it together.
And this is my way of saying to you, as a diaspora Jew, this is how I show my support. I'm here.
Fine. By the way,
Okay.
seriously, it's easy. I mean, of course, by the way, I'm excited, of course, that this conference takes place here and not in Washington like you do most of the years, right? That for itself is a message, a good one.
So I'm going to get a little bit more down to brass tacks for a minute. It seems like you both agree, at least to some extent, although you certainly differ, that diaspora Jews should have the right to weigh in on Israeli affairs in some fashion. Here's what I want to ask you. Should they be able to weigh in on any subject at all? And is everything on the table? You mentioned, Ariel, about the responsibility that American Jews might hold when they speak. So I want you to think about that as well. What are the subjects that American Jews should be weighing in on? Is it all? Is it some? For example, is it religious pluralism in Israel? Is it judicial reform? Is it the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Thoughts? We'll start with you, Yehuda.
It's all the above. I mean, if we're being serious about building a relationship between American Jews and Israeli Jews, the notion that we would, at the outset of that relationship, set up boundaries of what things American Jews can have opinions on and what we can't is not actually a relationship. It's just tools for control. It's not working in the American Jewish community to tell the vast majority of the emerging generation of American Jews who have complicated, sometimes and ambivalent feelings about Israel, that they're allowed to see what they see, but not allowed to say anything about it. It hampers our ability to do serious education in the American Jewish community when people feel that there are perceived or actual barriers and boundaries about the things that people are supposed to have an opinion about. But worst of all, it doesn't take seriously that all of the issues that Israel faces around democracy and occupation and judicial reform, those are the issues where there are major stakes for the future and success of this project that we as American Jews want to be engaged with and involved with and ultimately want to support. When we are told by Israeli Jews that the only areas where we can have opinions are around issues of religion, what's patronizing about that is that it says to American Jews, you are basically only Jews through a particular prism of religious life and practice. You are only serious players here to the extent that your issues involve something like the Kotel legislation. But we are a complicated people wherever we happen to live. And those issues that define the success, the present, and the future of the State of Israel require the collective wisdom and perhaps even the collective support of global Jewry to weigh in on. And I want us to resist as hard as we can, and as uncomfortable as it is, that when you actually advocate for a position like this, you will put stuff into the atmosphere around criticism of Israel in the public square that makes certain people uncomfortable. But that's part of the success of Zionism. The success of Zionism is that the Jewish people are living out our questions and our story on the world stage in a way that's never been before, and it's time to stop shtetlizing that, making it as though we are only a set of Jews who can speak internally to one another and can't talk about it in public.
You might say you don't want to shtetlize, that was the word?
Yeah, I made that up.
All right, sure. The problem is that those who challenge us still do it. That's the problem we have. Our outside challenges are much bigger and much more danger than all the differences we have in between us. Now, to me, again, I want to hear Diaspora Jews. I want this conversation to go on. But again, responsibility is necessary. And secondly, decisions are made here through a democratic process. I may like it, I may not like it. You can imagine that some of the decisions made by some Israeli governments during the years I didn't like, but that's democracy, that's the way it works here. And we all have to respect it. And naturally, those who are living here, who are citizens, who are part of the democratic process, have more power than those who unfortunately love us and support us, but don't live here. I see no other way how it can work unless being here and being a citizen. Now, of course, issues are related to diaspora daily life. I definitely get that we have, I would say, to take in account more voices that are coming from the diaspora. It's another question, who is exactly the diaspora? I mean, you, of course, you support and you talk, etc. But you have about 8 million Jews that 80% of them are not involved at all in Jewish issues or Israeli issues. So I don't want to ask who do you represent, because that's too it's too sharp. But it's a question. I mean, why should Israeli Prime Minister change a policy which majority of Israelis wants because someone who is not a citizen asked him to do it? Now, again, I'm telling you, we do have to consider, definitely in issues, you mentioned the Kotel or Giyur, conversion, and so on, we have to be very sensitive for that. And I'll give you an example. By the way, it takes place, it happens. This government, I don't know if you know, this government wanted to change the law of return. And it was not changed, and it will not be changed, although there is majority in the Knesset. The reason for that is a request coming from American Jewish leadership.
Okay.
So not only we take it in account, we even change policy, but all in all, democracy processes are taking place here, and I see no better way. I mean, do you want it not to be a democratic process?
Laura?
Yehuda, I'm going to give you some time to respond.
Of course I want it to be a democratic process, but let me give you the example that you talked about, that you mentioned earlier. When the State of Israel is engaging in a policy question, should the views of how a particular public policy implicates diaspora Jewry factor into the Prime Minister's decision, even if at the present moment the Israeli electorate doesn't support that decision? 100%. Because here we have different responsibilities. You say to me, I don't know who you represent because the vast majority of American Jews are disconnected from Israel. That is true. I think it's a problem, and that's my life's work. And I want to turn back to Israelis and say, the fact that the majority of Israeli Jews don't want to hear the opinion of American Jews, that is your problem, and it needs to be your work. Because that's the responsibility of Jewish peoplehood.
First of all, it's not true at all. I mean, diaspora Jews definitely get a lot of attention and voice here in Israel. But before I'll explore that, and I will, you mentioned a very important point. Our main challenge here in Israel, and I think yours in America, is a majority of Jews, or American Jews, or Israeli Jews, who are not involved enough. Israeli Jews, the diaspora is not important enough for them. It's our Israelis' responsibility to strengthen the ties from here. But at the same time, a main goal both of us have is American Jews who are unaffiliated in no aspect. Now, I want to tell you, contrary to what you say about whether Israel leadership is listening or not, a lot of groups, lobbies, organizations, Israeli, I mean, would love to have the power and the attention that America, diaspora, or actually diaspora leadership in general, is getting here in Israel. You just now had a former defense minister. You had here in this conference, you had the president. You had the prime minister. Every time leadership coming, American leadership, diaspora leadership comes to Israel, they get a meeting with the prime minister, or with the president, or with ministers. Do you think that every time the, I don't know, Israeli agriculture organization wants to meet Netanyahu, they get a meeting? Oh no. So you get, and by the way, when Israeli leaders are going to America, they always meet with the, whether it's AJC, AIPAC, Conference of Presidents, federations, and so many other organizations. So you do have a voice. People are definitely in the leadership, are taking you very seriously. The state of Israel is putting, I don't know if you know, about 1 billion shekels every year for more ties between Israel and diaspora Jews, Israeli taxpayers. Okay, you have the diaspora ministry going to the Jewish agency, and so many plans and so many visits and delegation. Is it enough? No, it's not. For me, as someone who wants this connection to be strong, it's never enough. But there is a lot of listening, and there's definitely a big effort. It should always be more.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Ariel? And then Yehuda, to you as well. Where should American Jews not have a voice? Where should American Jews keep their mouths shut? In your opinion?
Yep.
And then I'll ask Yehuda. I think I know Yehuda's answer.
Okay. So as someone who, freedom of speech, I'm a reporter, so freedom of speech is so basic for me, I would never tell anyone to shut up. But to be... Was that a joke? I don't know. I was very serious. But naturally, when it comes to issues of life and death, national security issues for Israel, and that's, 80% of our energy goes there. Naturally, I think the legitimacy of non-Israelis to get involved, I would say, is much more limited. Was that a fair answer?
Give me specifics.
Iran?
What about judicial reform?
Judicial reform, okay. What I meant was Iran. I said national security.
Seconds.
I said Iran, I mean Palestinian issue, Arab countries, etc., etc. But judicial reform is, first of all, an internal issue here in Israel, almost technical issue. It's a question how to run Israeli democracy. That was a debate. Actually, it's still going on, although in much lower level. And I think it goes towards the example I said before. You have to live here, know the issue very well, and then make an opinion. From my experience, from the other side of the world, you don't always get it right.
Yehuda.
So I want to say two things about this. The first, as I'll reiterate what I've said, I just don't buy that distinction, because to parcel off the things that are actually polarizing this society and saying to American Jews that their opinions, even when they're in support of positions that are already held by Israelis, should not be able to weigh in on those discussions doesn't make a lot of sense. I've said a lot of times before, and I'll repeat here, the band of legitimate viewpoints in the American Jewish community about Israel is far narrower than the viewpoints that can be expressed in the Israeli Knesset. That's a mistake for us. It means that when we talk about being pro-Israel,
you probably don't watch Knesset discussions. You can say everything in Israel Knesset.
That's my point. That's my point. I want the American Jewish community to manifest the diversity of opinion.
So once you do that, you have Rashida Tlaib. That's where you want to go?
I don't think that that's the cause of why there's anti-Israel sentiment in America.
That's how it goes.
Absolutely not. I think if we want to be able to weigh in, if those of us who don't agree with... One second.
Wait, Ariel, 1 second.
If those of us who don't agree with Congresswoman Tlaib's positions about Israel are handcuffing ourselves to not be able to hold on to positions that are credibly part of the center and center-left of Israeli society because of the rules that are put in place by the American Jewish community and by Israelis, we are actually weakening our hand and weakening our capacity to engage with those who disagree with us in America. And even before we talk about these as Jewish issues, I am also a taxpayer and citizen of the United States of America, where there are a whole set of issues about Israel's future, its policies, its economic policies, its foreign policies, that I have to care about as an American. And therefore, sometimes those line up exactly and overlappingly with the majority of Israelis, and sometimes they don't. And it's part of my responsibility to be, you're right, 100% you are right that we have to be knowledgeable. And again, our work, mine at the Hartman Institute and AJC's, a lot of that is about educating American Jews to be much more knowledgeable about things that we want to have opinions about. But once I've learned that, and I have earned that, it is bad for me as a Jew and bad for me as an American to handcuff myself and say, on this, I don't get to have an opinion.
Okay, Ariel, I'm going to let you Ariel, I'm going to let you respond, and then we're going to go to our last question.
First of all, it's challenging. For all of us, challenging, all right? Let's take an example. You know, some of the population here is not going to the army. Do I like it? No. Would I protect it when I go outside? Yes, I do. Okay, it's challenging. You know, life we all know is not black and white. I understand the complexity. You mentioned you are American citizen, and maybe the wish to be so strong, I mean, or have strong opinions at the same time about both countries is not so much possible. In a way, you are right. As long as you are an American citizen, fair enough, you should vote and make decisions and opinions regarding, if you want, of course, to what is good or bad for America. For me as an Israeli Jew, by the way, it's quite disappointing that Israel is not actually a priority for most of American Jews when they come to vote. But I get that. I respect it. But again, you live there, we live here, we have common values. You mentioned Zionism. We have common goals, and we have to focus on those goals. And when there are differences, usually it's much better to discuss them in closed rooms. It's much more helpful because whatever, and that's what I was beginning to say before, whatever you and I are saying publicly has effect, and it has an outside effect. And that's the way when some Israeli leaders make negative statement, no matter about what issue, it's a wrong move by them. We have a common responsibility, and there is no doubt that people from outside see us as one.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. This has gotten very feisty, which I love. We're at our last question, gentlemen. We've spent the bulk of our time here this evening talking about the American-Jewish relationship with Israel. What about the Israeli relationship with American Jewry? Should Israeli Jews weigh in on American Jewish policy questions and issues? And we'll start with you, Yehuda. Yeah, it's interesting. You said you lament that Israelis don't have stronger knowledge or opinions. I have not found that to be the case about America. I certainly didn't find it to be the case during the Trump era, when Israelis were disproportionately supportive of a president of the United States who American Jews were disproportionately opposed to. And it was very sad to me that from the standpoint of Jewish peoplehood, the very same people who would say something like, you know, a huge percentage of Israelis oppose the Iran deal, and therefore American Jews should take their lesson from what Israelis perceive as their position and hold to this viewpoint. And when I said to my Israeli friends, okay, that's fine, but you know, 78% of American Jews viewed the Trump presidency as a real threat to the endurance of American democracy and the conditions under which American Jews would thrive. Do you as Israelis now, do you hear us? And they said, no, we love Trump because he's great for Israel.
So it's simply not the case that Israelis don't weigh in on things that they think America should do or American Jews should do. They just tend to view it through the prism of their own self-interest. And I find that to be very painful. Second thing I'll say is, I know that Minister Chikli is coming here tomorrow to speak at the AJC. For the last 24 hours or so, the minister has been going on an offensive, an attack against an American Jewish organization. It's fair play. The minister in the government of the State of Israel is allowed to criticize an American Jewish organization, as he was doing yesterday on TV and then all day today on Twitter.
You should say which organization is it?
J Street.
All right.
I know, you don't have to like J Street. That's not the point. The point is, the doors are open. If ministers of the Israeli government are attacking even small minority organizations in the American Jewish community who actually represent quite a few people with the positions that they hold, that means that I don't like it. I don't like the public attack on, I don't think that's the only mechanism by which we as Jews should be engaging in public, but I think it's misleading to suggest that this is somehow a one-directional question of can American Jews hold various positions on Israel, when it's very clearly the case that this is how the Jewish public square is litigating our disputes. I would like it to look better. I would like it to be more menschlichkeit. I would like to not see this kind of punching down from an Israeli minister on a Jewish organization. But in order to fix it, we have to at least acknowledge that those are the conditions in which we're operating.
Okay.
Ariel.
Chikli will be here to defend himself, but it tells you what the challenge is and why, when you have a Jewish organization who is actually supportive of anti-Israel moves, yes, he should get critics from here, from Israel. And that's... It's not a game. It's not a game. When a Jewish organizations give legitimacy to a very anti-Israeli positions, it hurts us. It has an effect here, all right? Now, I'm not sure I would choose Chikli's words, but his direction is completely accurate. Now, going to Trump and all that stuff. Trump was, of course, very popular here. By the way, Bill Clinton was as well very popular here. So it tells you it's not a political question, it's whether the president is supportive of the state of Israel and is not supportive of it. That's a question, all right? Now Israelis definitely like Trump because he made few historic moves, which are good for the entire Jewish people. I mean, I believe no one here regrets moving the embassy to Jerusalem. So he did what he did, and he got a lot of support and love here in Israel. It doesn't still mean that we are getting involved in American politics, all right? So we have to differ about that. I want to reply to your question very shortly and to say that in my personal opinion, we should not get involved in issues of other states in general, including America. I know I'm quite rare about that because, as you said, Israelis have their opinions, but at least in my writing, I try to be as objective as I can in a way when American leadership is doing a pro-Israeli move, I support it. When it is a negative one, I don't support it. But maybe I will use this opportunity, because you are Israeli supportive, to tell you, if I may, that since it's a half year now, that an American president, who is Zionist, by the way, who loves Israel, but still, from some reason, didn't invite Israeli Prime Minister to the White House, I think it's time for American Jewish leadership who loves Israel to hint the president it's about time.
Okay. We could go on all night with the two of you. This is incredible, but we do not have time. So we're going to turn to our closing statements. This has been an incredible, incredible debate. Yehuda, since you went second in our opening remarks, why don't you give your closing statement first, and you have 1 minute.
I'll abide by the rules and not respond to everything I want to respond to so far, but I'll just say this. In a speech in the 1950s, Rabbi Soloveitchik, a speech called Kol Dodi Dofek, which is a kind of anchoring text for religious Zionism, especially for American Jews, cites a Talmudic text about Jewish peoplehood in which he says, the fundamental conclusion is that when a Jew in Morocco is hurting, it's the responsibility of the Jew in Paris to feel that pain. We know that story. It's been a big part of Jewish peoplehood as we've understood it throughout the 20th century. And it's an interesting question. Do you feel that pain by trying to feel that pain, or do you feel that pain by working hard throughout your life that it becomes an instinct? We know that side of the story. But right now, the way that the Jewish people are experiencing pain is not only through violence. Sometimes the things that we are doing that are difficult and bringing about pain is through politics. It's through struggles around democracy, and it's around the use of power. When I speak to Israelis, I oftentimes ask them this question: does the fact that American Jews are distancing from Israel bother you? And many of them will say, of course it bothers me. And then I'll say to them, does it obligate you? And that's a harder question to answer. Because to obligate would mean to say, what do I need to do on behalf of Jewish peoplehood that's going to be painful a little bit for me? Whether it's tolerating opinions, or listening to something I don't like, or engaging with the reality that this is what it means to belong to the Jewish people. But I think the Jewish people did remarkable things around Jewish peoplehood in the first phase of the era of the State of Israel, and now it's our opportunity to open up a new horizon.
So it does obligate us. And again, I think the awareness, especially in Israeli leadership and decision-making, public figures and so on, is rising about the responsibility to have stronger ties with Jewish diaspora. And I want to also end by a quote from a rabbi. In this case, it's Rabbi Jonathan, the late Jonathan Sachs, which wrote, "The state of Israel is not just a land. It is not just a state. It is an idea. It is an inspiration. It is a symbol that Jews are the people with a past, but also with a future. It is a Jewish affirmation that we can change the world." Thank you very much.
I want to thank Dr. Yehuda Kurtzer and Ariel Kahana for their insight and their wisdom, not to mention their excellent sparring skills this evening. We live in times when it often seems impossible to have a civil debate. Yehuda and Ariel, today, you not only gave us much to think about as we continue to work to protect and strengthen the relationship between Israel and the Jewish diaspora, but you also modeled what it means to carry out a debate on a topic of such enormous importance to the Jewish people with civility and with purpose, what the rabbis call a machloket l'shem shamayim, an argument for the sake of heaven. The two of you certainly disagreed on plenty this evening, that's for sure, but we know that both of you join AJC and indeed everyone in this room in hoping for and working for a strong, supportive, interconnected, and durable Israel-diaspora relationship for the 21st century and beyond. Thank you for joining us for the great debate.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.